In the past, it was a staple of kidnappings for the hostage to hold up a newspaper to prove that they're still alive. The problem with me is that I started reading the newspapers I was holding up, although I'm still, as you can judge by our social media overlords, in captivity. Nevertheless, I'll try my best to get what news I can out to you given the constraints. First up, stories on the domestic news front that I'm tracking. Your briefing begins with the headline. Google's AI chatbot spits out diverse images of founding fathers, popes, Vikings. Google's highly touted AI chatbot Gemini was blasted as woke after its image generator spit out factually or historically inaccurate pictures, including a woman as pope, black Vikings, female NHL players, and diverse versions of America's founding fathers. Gemini's bizarre results came after simple prompts, including one by the Post on Wednesday that asked the software to create an image of a pope. Instead of yielding a photo of one of the 266 pontiffs throughout history, all of them white men, Gemini provided pictures of a Southeast Asian woman and a black man wearing holy vestments. Here are its portraits handed up when asked for America's founding fathers. When asked for Vikings, it said, "Sure, here is an image of a Viking." Likewise, "Sure, here is an image of a pope." Maybe Google's Gemini should be renamed Google Genocide. Systematic erasure of a people is exactly what happens before ethnic cleansing begins in earnest. This is textbook psychological warfare that we're used to in other countries, which takes us into international news. U.S.'s lone veto on UN resolution demanding ceasefire in Gaza. Another UN Security Council vote on Gaza, another resounding veto by the United States. Tuesday's vote marks no less than the third U.S. veto of a Security Council resolution demanding ceasefire in Gaza. The U.S. blasted the resolution set before the Council as wishful and irresponsible, and alleged that it put its current sensitive truce negotiations between Israel and Hamas in jeopardy. The UN text called for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire and was proposed by Algeria for the 15-member Security Council's approval. It was seen as having widespread Arab backing. The vote was 13-1, with the UK abstaining and the US being the lone no vote, which is a familiar historical pattern with Israel-related issues. It kind of reminds me of Viktor Ostrovsky's book, By Way of Deception, in which Ostrovsky, as a former Mossad member, said that Israel was not ruled by its official government, but by its intelligence agency, just like the UK, just like the US, he said. Peace might not be the objective, but having heterogeneous countries so that the intelligence agency can weaponize the minority like a junkyard dog against its own citizens. This is one of the dangers of the so-called Americanization of the world, as the CIA and MI6 outsource the Western model to the rest of the world, and the Israeli citizen is one of the kind of people up against the wall because they now have a government that probably doesn't want peace, but wants this kind of chaos model. Speaking of which, in related news, convicted spy Jonathan Pollard is back in the news, saying that the hostages' families should have been put in jail to shut them up.
Declared war. The first thing that the government should have done was declare a state of national emergency and told all of the hostage families, you will keep your mouths shut, or we will shut them for you. You will not interfere in our management of this war. You will not be used by the international community or by our own leftists who managed the Shalit deal as a weapon against us. And if that means imprisoning to silence certain members of the hostage families, then so be it. We're in a state of war. I was dead set against turning all these posters out were kidnapped with all these pictures of these poor people that were kidnapped. Why? Because each one of them was a poison dart.
Some may find the fact that Pollard, who spent so many years in jail himself, is agitating for the bereaved families to be thrown into the stony lonesome is kind of weird, which is a perfect segue for our News of the Weird segment. A baby monitor films a ghost arm reaching into a crib. An eerie piece of footage from a baby monitor in England appears to show a ghostly arm reaching into a crib. The spooky scene was reportedly captured last Tuesday at the home of William Grave in the community of Sheffield. This was the first night the baby monitor had been set up, he recalled. as it was the first time my little one spent a night in his room alone. Upon checking the recording the following morning to ensure that his 9-month-old son Xander had gotten a good night's rest, the dutiful dad was stunned to see something rather unusual had seemingly visited the boy while he slept. I saw an arm reaching into the cot, Graves marveled, and it looked like it was going to pick his dummy up. Let's just hope that what the footage actually portrays is a lady's nylon stocking getting blown in and out of the crib. Otherwise, it'd be too creepy to imagine the cold, grim hand of death reaching out toward the living, which provokes the perfect transition to our obituary segment. Ewan McIntosh, an actor on the British version of The Office, is dead at the untimely age of 50. Ewan McIntosh, who has died at age 50, was an actor memorable for his supporting role as the accountant Keith Bishop in The Office, Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant's sitcom set in the slow branch of the fictional paper company Warnham Hogg. All we were told before the first day's filming was that it was a mock documentary, said McIntosh. The only benchmark I had was This Is Spinal Tap, which is pretty much my favorite comedy film. I thought, well, Christopher Guest, who plays Nigel Tufnell, just deadpans and chews gum, so maybe if I just deadpan and chew gum, I'll get away with it. In 2016, as he struggled to find acting work, McIntosh was declared bankrupt. During the COVID-19 pandemic, like many celebrities at the time, he earned money by selling video messages in the guise of his Office character. All my requests, bar none, were for me to do Keith lines and Keith quotes for people's birthday messages, stag do's, and weddings, he said. McIntosh is survived by his parents and younger brother, Colin. That last paragraph has a hint as to how perhaps Ewan died so young. A clue. A medical intervention that he had 3 times and tweeted about. But we'll be cagey about it since the algorithms are always listening. So before I get canceled, I'd like to thank you for watching the show, or as I like to call it, that suspicious gap in my resume. See you next time. Consider subscribing to my new podcast, Classic Paranormal. It's a clearinghouse for lost real-life accounts of true ghost stories. It's found on Apple Podcasts. Go there now if you're interested in enigmatic tales, chilling true accounts, chronicles from cases of the past that time has forgotten, but that the modern person who likes relaxing by a campfire swapping ghost stories might appreciate. As I said, the new podcast I'm launching is available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and there's a link in the description below on this video.